My name is Justin Willoughby. I'm going to start out with my testimony, just so you can get to know me a little bit. I currently am married, have 5 beautiful children, a loving wife, all I could ever hope and dream for, much more than I ever deserved. I have a good job. I get to serve in my church. I've been afforded opportunities to do things and go places and see people and talk about Jesus Christ and share what He's done for me in ways that I had never imagined. And I'm thankful for that. There's a lot of people who don't ever get that opportunity. Rewind 5 years ago, I had a pickup truck and 2 bags of clothes. That's all I had in my name. I was charged with 5 meth-related felonies. I was in jail under a $651,000 bond and didn't know if I'd ever be free again. I had thrown away everything that I'd ever worked for, that had ever been given to me. Any blessing that I had, I tossed it all away for a drug. I had a mortgage that turned into a repossession. I had a marriage that was toxic, that I had 2 children from. That, Lord knows what I put those kids through, things that they saw. A shameful life is what I had, what it amounted to. And as I prepared to share with you guys, and I thought, what can I bring to this day that might help somebody through my situation? I knew we were going to have plenty of good pastors and speakers, and they were going to tell about the love of the Lord. One of the questions that I hear all the time is why? Why in the world would somebody choose to throw away their life? Why would they choose to put us through what they're doing? Why in the world could they? How in the world could they let their poor kids go through this? And I wrestled with, is it a disease, is it a choice, is it this, is it that? And the fact of the matter is, it doesn't matter what you want to call it. It's the devil. It's the devil. And, it's a tool that he's using to tear lives and families apart. And it's your mind. If the devil gets in your mind, he's got you. He doesn't want your car. He doesn't want your home. All he wants is that right there. And once he's got that, he's got it licked. Come on, man. And I gave it to him through using. And drug use is a choice, and I believe addiction is a disease that comes from that choice. We choose to use, but I don't think there's a person alive that'll say they choose to be addicted. I chose to give my family away. I chose to ruin my life. I chose to lose my job. I chose to OD today. That's insane. That doesn't even make sense. There's no rational logic that goes behind that. And I think part of fighting this problem is to have understanding. It's hard to have compassion for something that you don't understand, that you've never been through. And I hear all the time from my job. I'm blessed with a job now where I get to work with drug addicts and people with mental health every day. They just don't understand what I'm going through. They can't relate. They haven't been there, and I can't talk to them because of it. But it's like this bottle of water. I can only see this side of the bottle. I don't know what you guys can see. And I have to remind them of that. I say, well, they don't know where you're at, but you don't know where they're at either. It's a two-way street. They didn't plan to have a drug-addicted son or daughter or mom or dad. They're doing the best they can with what they got. So what I want to bring today is maybe a little bit of understanding of why we do the things we do as drug addicts, why we allow certain things to happen, so to speak, or it's you know, to help you guys understand so that we can have compassion and we can come together and beat this thing. Addiction affects the brain. Our brain has what we call a midbrain, and that controls all of our survival functions, the things that we don't even think about, the second nature things, the eating, breathing, sleeping, procreation, things that we need to do to survive. And our brain has a reward system that lets us know when we do those things that we need to continue to do those things in order to survive as a race, as a human race. And it releases little small amounts of dopamine when you do those things. It's like a memory trigger to remind us that those things are important. And if we don't do those things, you know, there's going to be trouble. So knowing that, when we use drugs, we flood that system with large amounts of dopamine. And those large amounts of dopamine over a little bit of time tend to hijack the brain, kind of trick it into thinking that that was a good thing you just did. You need to do that in order to sustain yourself. You need to continue to do that. And the longer we do that, the more damage we do to our brain. And we have neurotransmitters that the dopamine affects, and those neurotransmitters are damaged. And that affects what we call the neocortex of the brain, which controls things like our judgment, reasoning, impulse, those things. So essentially, over a period of time, we've compromised the very system that's designed to keep us alive, and slowly we're killing ourselves. But by the time that happens, it's too late. And then in exercising our brain and creating the dopamine levels that are much higher than our normal design, they become depleted. We no longer have them. So the reward system is no longer there. We no longer have joy. We no longer have a life that means something without this drug. We're no longer happy. Normal things that we see other people do become myths. Like, we don't know how to obtain what they have because we've lived this way so long. We've robbed our brain. And unfortunately, because people don't understand what's happening, they see us as a moral defect, as something that's worthless. We've chose to destroy our life, and there's no help for us, and that creates a negative stigma that the addict has and the families of addicts. We're ashamed of who we are, with what we've become, what we've allowed ourselves to do, the relationships we've destroyed, and we allow ourselves to disconnect from anything good that can help us because we don't feel worthy, including God. I can't count how many times I felt too dirty to walk into a church, not because of what the world had said about me or my friends had said about me, but what the man in the mirror was saying about me. I hated myself, I hated what I'd become, I hated what I'd done, and I didn't have the ability to change it. I wanted to. Every day I wanted to. I cried. I remember calling my mama countless times, never admitting what I'd done. I was a functioning addict. I used in secret, so to speak, among certain circles, but it's almost like I was living a double life. I carried a full-time job. But over time, the addiction deteriorated. Anything that I'd worked for, anything that I had tried to obtain and hold on to. But I can remember just calling my mom and crying out because, I didn't have money to pay my bills, or my kids needed things, and I knew that, and I blew my money on dope that weekend, and I had to pay my light bill, or to pay for a field trip, or whatever the case may be. But that stigma of, if I admit I got a problem, I'm going to be shamed, I'm going to be looked down on, I'm going to be worthless. So I let my addicted brain convince me that I can do it myself. And that over time, it would all fix itself, and that never happened. And I think a lot of families hurt the same way, and they know the negative stigma that comes with having an addicted son or daughter. And even in the church, we're afraid to reach out in the church because nobody wants the pastor or the lady beside them to know that we failed as a parent, or that my son or daughter is going through something, and we just kind of do the best we can with what we got, and just pray in private. Addicts miss out on a whole lot of prayers due to a negative stigma. The fact is it's an illness, it's a defect, it's a disease, it's a spirit, it's a demon, it's the devil, and we have to war against it just like we war against any other thing that comes on our family, whether it be cancer or any other disease or defect or deformity or whatever. We need to educate ourselves. We need to try to understand, and I think that's a big part of it. Once you understand what's going on with your body and what's going on inside you, then you can develop a plan of attack through your church, through your prayer, through Jesus, through your family, and actually, really fight this thing. But when we're just sitting back and we just don't know, we're not doing anybody any favors by letting that negative stigma win. See, the devil knows that. The devil knows that's all part of his plan. The whole stigma that comes behind it, the way it's not just in the addict's head, it's in their heads too, the world's head. If the world can keep you quiet, the devil knows that too. So the devil's going to have us sit here and argue if it's a disease, if it's a choice, if it's this or for that, and he doesn't care. He doesn't care. As long as we're being divided, he's happy. And I just wanted to try to bring to light some of those things for you guys, so you could maybe. I had a young lady ask me, how do I talk to my parents about this, because they're gonna freak out, they're gonna lose their mind. And I think it becomes with education. It starts with education. It starts with an understanding, and then we can begin to have compassion for one another. We can carry each other's burdens like the church has called us to do. We can become the hands and feet of Jesus and quit pointing the finger at the reason why things are the way they are, and we can begin to help. Because every time I've ever pointed my finger at somebody, guess what? I had 3 pointing back at me.
That's right.
And we get so caught up in who's right and who's wrong, and this way, it's this way. It's all you can see is that part of the Bible. You don't get to see what everybody else can see. And we open our minds, and we allow God to work in our life, and things begin to change. I've heard addiction described as an experiment that someone done early on with putting a rat in a cage, and they had a bottle of regular water and a bottle of addicted water, and nearly 100% of the time the rat would choose the drug-laced water, to the point where it eventually overdosed and killed itself. And I think that's the model that was kind of where it kind of started from, the whole moral failure. Like it's up to the rat to choose, and the rat always chose. So there's a defect in the rat. There's something wrong with the rat. And there was birthed that idea, and then comes along somebody with a different idea, and he just takes the same cage, same 2 bottles, puts a rat in it, but in this cage he puts tunnels and colorful balls and food and other healthy rats, and guess what? Hardly ever does the rat go to the addicted bottle of water. And that got me to thinking, it doesn't matter how we got to where we were, be it through people that have wronged us in our past, tragedy, poor choices, whatever. at some point as an addict, we all found ourselves in that empty cage where we felt like we only had two choices. And since I've been delivered, and I've been in recovery for October 17th will be 5 years. I realized that there's a lot of truth to that. I just recently heard that, and I thought about, looking back at my life, what did I do different? What made me successful was how I decorated my cage after I realized I was in one. And the first thing that I put in there was Jesus. Without that, I don't know that we don't have a chance. But we can begin to decorate our cages with positive, good things in life, healthy things, those relationships. And Jesus opens doors that no man, and on paper, I don't belong to be standing right here. I can promise you that. I don't belong to have the job that I have, the wife that I have, my children. I don't deserve them. But God opens doors, and when He does,
Amen.